met Charlie actually in Indianapolis at the Jazz Kitchen. You know, he plays at the Jazz Kitchen on a regular basis. Fast forward maybe 5 years later, Charlie came to the Jazz Kitchen. He's like, "Hey man, I'm in town. I want you to play with us on my set." And I said, "Okay, sure." And then I did, and ever since then he's been calling me pretty regularly. This session came together through a series of conversations I had with Charlie Hunter when I was on tour with him. Started talking about the music business and how to create some inertia, what it would take for me to get to the next level as far as exposure.
That's it, yeah. And I'll play through the whole thing.
We continued the conversation this past December when we did a West Coast tour. We talked about prospects of doing a record, and then he suggested if we do a record, you know, maybe we should do a trio record with Mike.
Rob had been touring with me in a trio, and he played with Mike a lot. I've known Mike for a long time.
Since I had a relationship with Mike and I've played with him before, and he's like legendary funk drummers of all time.
Rob's such a great cat. It's always a joy when he calls and says, "Hey, what's going on? You want to do something?" A lot of drummers say, "Well, I try to find where the bass is putting his thing." I don't give a damn about any of that. I don't do that. I listen to the overall band and then try to swing with the cats. Not make it swing, but try to fit in and so that it will swing.
I was thinking of making a record, and then I ended up not. You know, I said, "But Rob, why don't I just produce your record? Because you're kind of due to have a good record out there," you know, and that's kind of how it started.
Three months later, here we are in the studio in New York City, in Brooklyn.
Maybe you can mute that kick drum down a little bit more.
Cool.
Yeah, just like a little heavier on the...
Throw some stuff inside.
I think we'll just move it around a little bit.
I was very grateful that he offered to produce my music.
You know, it's just doing the right thing, you know, I mean, he's great. It's like a money where your mouth thing is, you know. If I'm gonna go and complain about, oh, how come there aren't records that I want to listen to that are kind of being made, and not necessarily my thing, but what do I want to hear, you know? And I want to hear that. That's the kind of record I want to put on. It's not that benevolent.
Charlie is definitely a one of a kind. I don't think there's anybody in the world that does what he does.
We're gonna do that head. Rob's gonna solo over the regular vamp, but then let's definitely hit that bot to ball on the fifth at the end.
First few times that I played with him, I was just like, I couldn't look because I couldn't tell when he was striking the chord and when he was playing the bass. The more I looked at it, I was like, man, it's like he's pulling a magic trick or something. So I just said, I just can't look at him when I play because I can't tell where it is, you know, because you're looking at his hands. He's just making it happen all at once.
What I like about Rob is that he could do all of the technical stuff if you need to, but it's about sound, because his sound is really big. And it's about the blues and soul and having that kind of narrative in terms of telling a story and not so much concerned with the technical exhaustion kind of thing, you know. I just like where he's coming from.
Yeah, good.
There's a thing in the beginning of the melody
Yeah.
that we might need to punch real quick.
As long as it's not like super like, whoa!
It's okay, as long as it's not super Lutheran sounding.
Right. Lutheran. We have 2 new adjectives to add to our dictionaries.
We talked about when we were going to do the record, he said it would be cool if we had another horn on there, create harmonies and everything, and I suggested that. I said, well, maybe we could use Ernest, and he said, man, that'd be a great idea.
Mike and I go back 20 or so years, maybe more, 25 years at this point. So learned a lot from him. You know, he kind of invented a way of playing in a lot of ways, coming out of a jazz thing, but also the blues, shuffles. I mean, he played with Jimmy Reed and, Albert Collins and those guys when he was a kid. Then he and Paul Jackson developed this whole kind of way of dealing with funk rhythms, I guess in what you would call a linear way, more of a jazz way of thinking, but it was funk music, and that's what that Headhunter stuff ultimately was.
To me, what a drummer or a drum specialist means when they call it linear is every limb is striking a different part of the drum, not at the same time. So everything is hitting in a different, like, tap, 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 boom, boom, and then you can arrange that in any order you want. What I did was I took Philly Joe and Mac's phrasing and put it on the hi-hat, kick and snare, and put a backbeat in it. That was my thing.
It's never a dull moment when you play with a mic.
Then once you learn how to drive a stick shift, you don't want to drive an automatic because you can do all your stuff. 2, 3. Drums are the same way. Once you know what you're doing, and if you have an affinity for getting around the drum set, then you can either choose to do that or not. My father used to tell me, if you get the majority of your idea across the plate, somebody else will cross the T's and dot the I's for you. That's how I play the drum.
I actually went and looked at some old videos of Mike Clark with the Headhunters, Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters, and some of the other things that he's done, and play that beat that he was playing on the computer, and then kind of start writing a couple ideas how to write a composition with that drum groove.
I played a hell of a lot of blues and funk, and the reason I was asked to play a lot of funk gigs is because in the early 60s, not many guys could play the James Brown stuff. That was my high school girlfriend music, and I just knew how to do it without researching it.
I wrote a tune and the harmony is pretty diatonic, so I was like, well, in a way, in my mind, that harmony is kind of linear, so I thought with his drum grooves and the way they describe the linear drum style, I said this might be a very cool composition if you think about it, because it's almost like the composition is maybe linear. You don't have it all stacked on top of each other.
There's very few people around that can play that kind of shuffle and that can play those kinds of beats that he invented. You've heard him sampled on a million records, but you don't really know what it is. You know what I mean? A lot of the younger people, they don't know what it is. They don't know it's him. And so it's great to have that on this record, and I think it really worked out well.
Like a boost pedal because I don't have really strong pickups. This is like a magnetone vibrato, very 1950s technology. Usually I don't use anything, and then they have this kind of a Leslie speaker thing I might turn on. There's that, the A section really is right? Again, right? Again, right? Yeah. Then we just groove, you and me.
What I like for guitar better is when it doesn't have the horn. I just like it when it's like the speaker. I think they call it a vibratone, and that has a lot better, more copacetic sound for the guitar. So they had it here, I used it, and in terms of comping, it was just like, wow, this sounds really cool, man. Why don't we just, and we ended up using it on every tune on the record.
I'll say kudos for him on the production and the producer aspect.
How's it sound with the brushes, Aaron? Killer. All right. Count it off, baby.
1, 2, 3.
The last tune that we played, I've never done it with brushes. He goes, I'm gonna do funk on the brushes. And then it comes into focus, you're like, man, that is really cool. So that's kind of the way these tunes have evolved on this record.
Just him and I.
He said, okay, this is what we do. We slow this down, we change these chords, we do this, we do that. That allowed me a chance to just really focus on my performance aspect of the record.
You just kind of just get out of the way and just make suggestions and you know, which is another reason why, like, why do I want to play solos? And then I'm just like, I'm all invested in that. I don't want to be invested in that. I want to be in a project like this. I want to be invested in the vibe and the making sure the grooves are great and making sure that Rob sounds great. That to me is super fulfilling and super fun. We didn't overthink anything, you know? I mean, it was just like, let's play some groove music and let Rob do the heavy lifting in terms of the other stuff. We got good takes, you know? And a lot of times the first take is the one we used.
It felt like a band all the time to me. It never did not feel like a band. So I didn't feel like I was working. I felt like I was having fun. In fact, I was having fun.
Really cool music comes out of the studio, and so I'm very excited about listening to my sound on this record.
He deserves to take his career to the next level.
Some of these tunes that you'll hear on this record, you'll feel like, man, they're really taking a journey. And it was because we really were. We really didn't know where it was going. But it ended up to be something really cool.
You know, I think we've come to the technical exhaustion of the technical kind of player. And I feel like it's time for someone like Rob, who's more about kind of soul and blues and feeling and sound and narrative to come out. And I hope the best for him.